Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. I'm back with a brand new What If. What if Deku was the god of death? This is obviously a fan fiction. I mean, obviously my own fan fiction. Let's make that clear. I know I say that a lot. These are written by me, not by someone else. I just call them fan fictions because they're, well, fan fictions. But with that said, this is a in a way, reboot of What If Deku was the Grim Reaper. And if you enjoy this reboot, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And that's about it. I don't have that much else to say. And let's just get right into the what if. Let's get it. In a world of question marks, of the unknown, quirks were something that rose out of seemingly nothingness. Some believed it to be human evolution, and others believed it to be a miracle. God and gods were something that were unknown as well. Many people believed in a god. Some believed in many, and others believed in none. Now, the real question though, was were the gods truly listening? When all of these bad and horrible things would occur, were they truly listening? This would eventually lead to questions, and a lot of them throughout societies. But this was a normal occurrence. Many would question everything. Kids did it all the time. But truly, what were the gods or God thinking at this point? Gifting humans the powers that would transcend their own world. Well, soon, a boy by the name of Izuku Midoriya would gain a power unbeknownst to him. A power that would exceed anything he could possibly imagine. A dark figure would appear in Izuku's room and would carry over to him. It was odd. It was as if this figure had red eyes, or at least glowing eyes, stoic in his wake, staring at Izuku, but doing nothing. That was it, staring at him, as if he was hovering over Izuku and just providing him with his presence. It was something of amazement at that. Izuku didn't really realize this creature or being was standing over him, but his mother did. His mother would walk in to see this monstrous being. She would freak out for a second, but calm down, as Izuku had no clue what the thing was, and she didn't either. She would pick up Izuku and begin to walk away, and the being would just track Izuku with his eyes, and that was it. She would walk out, leave. They would come back, and eventually she would come back with officers, and the being would no longer be there, as if the being knew that it could not be spotted by anybody else. But at the same time, the being acted as if it didn't care in a way. It didn't care about being spotted. But what was that thing? What is it? What is it even trying to be around for? Eventually leading to Inko telling Izuku, who's just a young kid, that they're going to be moving. That they're going to get a brand new house and so on and so forth. He didn't know what the reason was for. She made it seem like it was such a good thing. But of course it wasn't. It was to get away from whatever that was. That freaked Izuku or Inko out. But Izuku had no idea. But the gods themselves began to see what was occurring. That the god of death itself has arrived on Earth. It seemed as if the power balance has shifted and changed so drastically that the god of death has decided to approach a being on Earth to gift them with power beyond everything. That's what that god was doing, staring over Izuku as his next predecessor. It seemed as if this being was actually a god, and Inko had no idea. Of course, not a god that she would even believe in, but one that existed beyond this realm or beyond this plane of existence. This god was real as they were and as real as the sky was. This god was something to be reckoned with, and the power that Izuku got would change him forever. And throughout the years, it would come out to be this way. Inko would have no idea that occurrence was the reason why, but it would terrify her. She would learn of Izuku's quirk being really an unknown encrypted quirk, but that's because it's not necessarily a quirk. It's built in within Izuku now, but it doesn't take the slot of a quirk. They have no idea the certain things and these certain abilities that Izuku is able to do, because unbeknownst to them, it seems as if that he doesn't have a quirk at all, and it's kind of odd that he's able to do these things. Izuku would bring up these horrible nightmares, but these nightmares seemed as if they were from the POV of someone entirely new, different, someone that saw the face of death itself, saw death, someone that passed away. Inko would begin researching certain dreams that Izuku would have, learning of these victims, and it was insane. Some would die in their sleep. Izuku would see those, seeing it maybe on some certain morgue website or something of that regard, but some would die of really terrible measures, and those were the worst dreams for Izuku. His personality would shift, change, stark and stoic, and Izuku would become far less cheerful. He wouldn't enjoy his favorite heroes. He wouldn't enjoy the same heroes that he enjoyed when he was, a little kid. By the age of 12, Izuku was thinking about far darker things, remembering those dreams, drawing in a journal these dark creatures. Izuku seemed to be on the bridge of, what his mother thought was just maybe an emo phase or something of that regard, but it was far different than that. Izuku one day would arrive at school and would continue to get bullied. I mean, why wouldn't he? But during this time, Izuku wouldn't stand for what they're saying, wouldn't stand for what they're doing. And out of nowhere, this rage overflowed within Izuku and poured out, as if this dark figure would appear behind him, not the god that they saw a long time ago, but a different dark figure, as if it was some clouded figure with a hoodie on, with a scythe. This figure would scare the hell out of every single kid, but as the teacher turned around, the figure would poof into, out of existence. Izuku would sit there and look up, as if he had no idea what he just did, and in a way, he really didn't. He had no clue what just occurred, but as long as they shut up, it didn't matter to him. His teacher would continue teaching on, but Izuku would eventually just be done with all of it, done with all school and stuff like that. He felt that it was needless, that it didn't matter anymore, and soon things would feel a lot more as if they didn't matter. Izuku would go through what felt like hell. He would arrive one day at his home, his mother nowhere to be found. He would begin to search anywhere and everywhere he possibly could, until it was, too late at night for him to find her. He decided to go to sleep, and during a dream, he saw something terrifying. Buildings collapsing, and eventually a hero steamrolling through everything. A hero trying to catch a villain, burning down his building. No, this looked just like his mother's building, where she worked. That's how she died. She's dead. Izuku would be abruptly awoken at night. It's about maybe 4 a.m., 3 a.m., so I guess technically not at night, but he would walk out to see police officers at the door. These officers would tell him that his mother tragically died, Well, due to a hero and villain fight. And that's a villain basically destroyed the building and it was burned to a crisp. And then there were no survivors. Izuku was petrified, horrified at the aspect that his mother has now left him alone. Izuku didn't even know what to do with himself, and in a matter of seconds, a dark cloud of basically judgment and death and mourning over his mother would overtake him, killing all of the cops that stood in front of him, and immediately he would disappear into nothingness. He would appear somewhere else in Japan, looking far different than before. A cloak of darkness around him and a cloak on him as well. Hood sprawled over his head. Izuku sat there in this abandoned building, all alone. He didn't know what to do with himself. What was he supposed to do with himself? But just as he was thinking these things, he began to hear small little whispers from the darkness. He began to follow those whispers, not believing anything of them, but at the same time thinking that he had nothing to lose anyways. Eventually finding something, a case, a black case, a dark case, full of nothing? It seemed so odd. This case was so ominous, but as he opens it up and reaches in, something began to be shrouded in darkness appears. It's a scythe, a black scythe that when pulled out, this red electricity would course around it. As he placed it on his back, red electricity would surround him as well. He'd feel power coursing through him, and far, far different thoughts than he did before would begin to flow through his mind. He was now the embodiment of the god of death, of the Grim Reaper. It was different though. He felt different. He felt as if the world around him was collapsing. He already lost his mother, so what else would he have to lose? He begins to slightly cry as his tears, as they hit the ground, would evaporate into nothingness. Izuku would feel as if everything was over. He might have this power, have this weird dark essence around him. What did this even mean? Soon, a dark figure with red eyes, and seemingly glowing eyes at that, would show up, and he would begin to speak in this cryptic tone, a cryptic voice at that. It seemed as if he wasn't speaking any language that Izuku would normally understand. It seemed like gibberish, but he was able to understand every last word he spoke. He began to tell Izuku certain things, telling him that the death of his mother was a catalyst to this power, and that everything to come would be a catalyst from that moment itself. Izuku has been seeing life and death especially from the POV of everybody. These point of views are to prepare him, because every last death he would have to take on. That scythe is built up of every last soul that ever existed, and every last soul that passed on to the next realm of existence. Now Izuku needed to push through this. He needed to focus that power into however he saw fit. The god of death and the Grim Reaper is far different than he could possibly imagine. He is a guide. He'll bring everybody that is supposed to die and that will die to death itself. But he is not the one doing the killing. He will not be the one doing the killing. He is someone that is just a guide. That is it. Izuku has such a power, but he also has free will. He has the free will to use this power how he sees fit. Maybe to stop heroes, to kill heroes, anything he so chooses, but still his job is to guide the death to the next plane of existence. That is his job. Izuku is shocked and is about to say something, but the person that stands in front of him would disappear. Izuku would begin to scream that he didn't ask for any of this, that he didn't want any of this. He would slam his scythe into the ground as the area around him would mold into darkness. But then when he slammed it once again, the darkness would disappear. The dark clouds that surrounded Izuku were no longer there. He would walk away from this abandoned building and look outside. As he looks outside, he sees something that he's never seen before. Lights and an omnipotent presence. It's terrifying in a way. He sees one on the left side of Japan, glowing this holy light of some sorts. On the right side, he sees various other lights, different at that. And all around, he sees darkness as well. The gods themselves have arrived on Earth, not only in Japan, but also all around the world. In secret, of course, but everybody around is beginning to get their blessings. And a lot of people around as well are beginning to get their curse. Izuku is in complete shock, seeing all of this. He's sure that some other people should be able to see it as well, but it's not the truth. He can only see it at this moment. Many others have no omnipotent presence around them. But someone would eventually, and someone that would act far different in the presence of everyone else would be shown to have that omnipotent presence behind him. Katsuki Bakugo would arrive back at school, but as a totally different person. He would still have that edge to him, that rowdiness, that passion to be a hero, but he would be nowhere near the bully he once was, as if some angel came to him and blessed him with something that he couldn't even, thank them for. He was a far different person and began to worry about the lack of Izuku not being there and being gone. Eventually, Katsuki would learn of what happened to Izuku and where he went, or the lack of where he went. Many would have no clue where he eventually would subside at, but Izuku would know. He was gone. At the age of 14 or around 14, Izuku would be on his own, living on his own, and dealing with his own. That's all he cared about at this moment, until one night while he was walking to the store, he would be jumped in an alleyway. As he jumped in this alleyway, these people began trying to beat on him over and over again, but Izuku would stand up as if he was glitching out, as if he wasn't actually in this plane of existence. He would appear behind all of them, not a scratch on him. He would stare at them as he would lift his hand up and a scythe would appear and he would slam it on the ground. He would begin to say in a demonic voice that judgment is coming and that people like them, they will know exactly what judgment means. The people around Izuku would begin to scream as if they were in immense pain. Izuku would continue to stand up as the clouds or dark clouds would surround him and everybody else. They would scream as if they were getting, murdered. They would feel this pain, immense pain, and they would begin to see exactly their deaths. They would see something horrible, something terrifying. But just as they would awaken from that nightmare, Izuku would plunge his scythe through their chests, and he would say that they would not be guaranteed that way out. He would slice them in half, leaving their bodies to rot, and Izuku would leave them there. He would walk away as he puts the scythe back on his back, and he would begin to search for more people that needed judgment. Izuku knew that this wasn't necessarily his job, but at the same time felt the pressure of this power, this dark power within him, as if he needed to make sure that things were straightened out. Days became weeks, and weeks became months, and months became years. Time and more time would pass as Izuku would await that next person to hunt. He would realize something, that there were monsters out there, terrifying villains that were horrible for this society and horrible for everything that bred peace. He began to leave as if he was hunting for somebody that had a kill count of hundreds, maybe even thousands. He would begin to search, and the way he searched was through sheer darkness. He would traverse the area of Japan searching for somebody, someone very specific. Eventually, he would come across the man that he's been searching for. But as he would bust down the door, well, there was nothing there. Nothing at all. Just a TV screen. This TV screen begins to talk and begins to speak with Izuku, saying that he knows exactly who he is and where he's from. He's been looking for him. Actually, he's been looking for him for a while. And luckily, he knew he was coming. And it was kind of perfect timing, because frankly, he didn't want the others to be here when he arrived. All For One was speaking to him, and he began to ask him various questions about how he got this so-called power of his. Izuku would tell him that he doesn't need to, well, tell him anything, and that if he comes out right now, maybe he'll consider it. That, or he'll kill him. Izuku pulls out his scythe, and All For One says that there's no chance in hell that he shows his face. He knows his limitations, and Izuku would definitely give him one hell of a run for his money. So, he'll stay exactly where he is. Izuku calls him a coward. All For One says that's just not the case. He just knows when to fight his battles. And Izuku seems as if he doesn't know his own limitations. A couple Nomus would then appear around Izuku, forcing him out of the building, and Izuku would begin to fight these Nomus out on the streets. These Nomus were already dead. There was no controlling them through fear or a want to survive. But as Izuku would strike the first one down with his scythe, the body of the Nomu began to crumble into dust and reassemble back into the same being that it is. Still being a Nomu, but now under the control of Izuku. Izuku continues to do this as each Nomu falls under his control, and Izuku would then walk back in the building, telling All For One that it didn't work how he thought it would. And All For One begins to laugh, saying that he knows, that he wanted this to happen. The Nomus begin to explode, as if it was some trigger mechanism from a quirk that is within their body, that once they were reconstructed, that this exact event would occur. It begins to blow up the building of the League of Villains base, and All For One has told the League of Villains prior to this to be aware and to be safe, and that this would need to happen. This outcome would need to happen for everything to be successful. The building would explode on itself, and it seems as if Izuku was, well, beneath all of the ashes, that he was dead. But just as he heard the last little murmur of All For One, hearing his voice and hearing the exposure of exactly where the League of Villains went, Izuku would rise from the ashes once again, his body slightly cracked and glowing this red color. He begins to walk away. Putting his scythe back on his back, All For One could not even recognize where Izuku's body is, assuming that somehow he survived. Izuku would then travel somewhere else, travel to a brand new place called UA. UA was a top hero school in Japan, but as Izuku would enter the building, alarms would begin to sound and heroes would begin to converge on his area. He would be confronted, and many would ask what the hell he thinks he's doing. Izuku would say that he has no business with them, he has business with the villains that are currently attacking their so-called rescue facility. Izuku says that he knows they're there because he got information from All For One himself. It seems as if his mastermind continues to work because he would obviously want Izuku there for a reason. For what reason? He doesn't know, but at the end of the day, he doesn't care. All of the heroes stand in front of him, at least the ones at UA, telling him that that just can't be the case, that they would have heard from the USJ already, but that they can't let him take another step. Izuku then pulls out his scythe and says that he'll do what must be done, especially because the heroes won't do what needs to be done. Izuku points his scythe toward them as he smashes it into the ground as the terrain begins to crack and look just like his skin. The cracks begin to glow all red, and Izuku says that it's time for a lesson. A lesson about how you and many others should never mess with the god of death. And that is a wrap for What If Deku Was the God of Death Part 1. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Sorry about it being delayed. Obviously some things came up and I just been really busy. I'm trying my best to get these videos out. I just been extremely busy, so that's kind of why these things happen. But yeah, nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all of y'all make sure to leave a like and sub and all that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.